The first time I realized I was a person of color was back in junior high school. I was taking a New York State standardized test. Um, there was an option to click off your race, and there was African American slash black. There was Hispanic, and there was Caucasian, Caucasian white, and Native American. My mom is from Panama, so she's classified as Hispanic. So I'm black. My skin tone is black. I was classified as black, but I checked off Hispanic because my mom is Hispanic, and that was the first time it occurred to me like, what is my race? Because my mom is from Panama, and that's classified as Hispanic, and my skin color is black. So I went home and asked my mom, and she told me that I was black, but that she was from Panama, so that made her Hispanic. But as far as me, I'm African American or black.
The first time I realized that I was a person of color was when I went to Point Pleasant, New Jersey with some friends and family. I got pulled over by the cops because he mistaken me for some dude that pulled down some guy's swimming trunks in the beach. And then also it was a time that I went to the Time Warner building to get some sushi. Some white cop just kicked me out of the building and I paid for my food. And that was so whack.
I think the first time I realized I was a person of color definitely has to be when I was around, say, like mostly 7, because people kind of see me as sort of not Dominican at all. People see me as sort of like, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm Dominican. Like, really? Because you look like you're from Spain, or London, or somewhere that's basically not. I don't really fit the profile of I don't know, typical Dominican looking person from DR. So
I know it wasn't the first time, but the real first time I realized that I was a man of color occurred to me in college at the University of Massachusetts. I was playing a game of basketball with my roommate who was white and his friends. They all went to the same high school, so I was hanging out with like all of these white kids. And one of the dudes left the game like for some random reason in the middle of the game. And then when we were in our room talking about it later, the dude who left the game was like, "Niggers never pass the ball." And I was like, "Word?" Because I'm 17, 18 at this point, and we're living in this like post-racial Obama society, and this dude is like really here using niggers, and I was like, shit.
The first time I realized I was a man of color was, to be honest, for as long as I can remember, because I come from a mixed background, so I always knew that there was a difference. My mom is from Ecuador, and my dad's from Panama. So like I see, and it's the same principle in South America and Central America. There's race issues there also, and I always saw tensions in my family between in-laws because of color of their skin. And same thing here. I'm always getting confused. I have a hard time identifying with myself sometimes because of my mixed background, and I feel like I can't really identify with anything per se.
I'd say it had to be around the time I started learning history. And I feel like around that time, that's when a lot of young people, a lot of young kids start to realize like the differences between their skin colors and start looking at each other differently.
When was the first time I realized I was a person of color? It would probably be around junior high school. I think I had an older brother, and we were both a little shade on the dark side, and they would like tease him a lot about, oh, look at that. He was like a little chubby, dark skinned kid. He was like, oh, look at that fat black kid, da da da. And it would come from all over: Caucasians, light skin, black, quote unquote light skin black. It would come from all over, and then they're like, oh, look at his little charcoal brother and stuff like that. So I heard all the jokes. I didn't really know how to respond to it because my brother was the type to like defend me and kind of shield me from a lot of stuff. So he would like say someone said something about my skin color, he would just he was a big dude, so he would just step in like the sunlight and block it out. So like they would he shield me from a lot of things, but that was like the first time I was aware that like I was black or say a man of color.
The first time I realized that my race played a role in how people treated me was probably in junior high school when I really became conscious of that. I was in a math class in a program at Stuyvesant, and the teacher would constantly call me Bronx, and he would roll all his R's whenever he was speaking to me, and only to me, because I was the only kid there from the South Bronx, and he used to call me Bronx. And he would sometimes joke that the instructions should be read to me in Spanish, even though I clearly spoke English. But I realized that he had an issue with my race.
What are some of the misconceptions that people have about me based on me being a man of color? There are some obvious ones. People assume that I'm going to be a good dancer, which I am. They assume that I'm going to like fried chicken, which I do like fried chicken. I'm trying to think, what else in all seriousness. I mean, you definitely sense some of the things that I feel like all people of color have experienced many times and is maddening and frustrating, is simple things like walking around in a store and people following you and assuming that they have to keep an eye on you because you're black and therefore you're a criminal and you're going to be stealing something from them. So there's stuff like that. I feel like in random ways, people are also programmed to believe that black men are objects of violence and aggression.
Some of the challenges I faced being a man of color would fall mostly within my hobbies. I started skateboarding when I was 13 years old, and my neighborhood is considered a white boy sport. When I was skating, like they would say, "Oh, why are you doing that white boy sport?" or just call me names or whatever. But along the years, I got better, and then it's crazy how that the same people that would ridicule me are like saying, "Oh, how'd you do that?" or "How you do that trick?" or "How you do that?" Now I'm getting respected for doing this white boy sport.
Some of the challenges I face is that as an actor, there aren't too many roles written for like roles men of color.
This whole deal with filmmaking and trying to, well, for me, trying to be in animation, it's sort of like that's not where you would see that's not where certain people imagine a Dominican guy to want to go to. They figure I'd be doing like baseball or cars or something.
Some challenges of being a man of color in America is racial profiling.
Some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about me, I don't know, that I guess that I might be into certain things that I'm not. Like sometimes people are surprised to hear that I might know more about other cultures than my own. They know the music that I listen to. I know when I was growing up in church, I went to like a Spanish Pentecostal church, and I didn't speak Spanish very well. So people there would try to speak to me in Spanish, expecting me to know what they were talking about, and I did not understand what they always were trying to say to me. But one thing that they did do, they would try to pronounce my name in English, but the best that they could do was Marco instead of Michael. So I was Marco at my church for like 4 years.
The biggest challenge being a man of color comes growing up in a system of the world that's based on white supremacy. So just for me being born here, it's not really set up for me to thrive in America. One of the biggest challenges is growing up without my father. And even so, my mother grew up without her father. So in my family, that's 2 generations of male absence that has had, of course, a great effect. I think one huge thing, like a family is supposed to be building on a legacy, but there's not really much of a legacy that I'm adding to. It's almost like I'm born here, I'm not receiving any inheritance, just what my grandmother's pension can give me, and what my mother gets from her job. It's like I kind of have to like start from scratch and just build what I can. And then being a young black man, I don't have my college degree yet. I mean, job prospects is slim. Whereas like somebody else could go say, hey dad, can you loan me 20 racks so I could start this business idea? Like, I don't have anybody that I could say that to. You know what I mean? I don't even have $20 for myself. So yeah, just trying to take the ideas and dreams that I have and manifest them from scratch. Like, that's a huge challenge, being a man of color.
Some of the challenges I would say facing being a man of color, like I said before, identifying with myself. I don't feel like I can cling to any group per se. Also being given the opportunity like anybody else would. Being a minority, I feel that people see me in a certain light and that I'm predisposed to acting a certain way. And I feel that inhibits my opportunities so let's say a job or anything really. I feel that challenges those would be the challenges being a man of color, is opportunities, I would say.
What are some of my challenges of being a man of color? I would say it's 50-50. 50 what I think or how I see myself, and also 50 the reality of things. Being a man of color in a not even post, but still current, like, racist society.
Some of the challenges being a man of color. For one, I have a lot of running with police officers. I could say I had an incident where I was going to go on the train, and it was normal, but I guess like a suspect or whatever. I looked suspect, so the cop called me back and said, "Oh, we saw you jump the turnstile," and I'm like, "There's no way possible you see me jump the turnstile." So they took me back all the way up the escalator, back to the booth, to check my Metro card to see if I used it, and obviously I did use it. I got no apology. All he did was, okay, just open the gate and let him through. And then I'm talking about, this is like 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and now I gotta wait for the train another 20 minutes. So I was highly upset, but I didn't. You get, the more upset you get, the more they try to find things to like mess with you. So I kept my cool, and I waited on the next train.
First time I've ever been stopped and frisked was when I was 16. Friends of mine, we were playing around on the train, and when we got off the train, some undercovers came at us showing the badge, and they threw me against the wall, and because I didn't have my ID, and they searched my bag, and they threw my phone on the floor and everything, and they was just they were bugging out.
I feel like in many ways I'm viewed as a different species, both by black people of African descent, African Americans, and also by other Americans, because I'm not an African American. And I feel like in many ways I know that I'm given preferential treatment on the basis that I'm not African American, and that I talk a certain way, and that I dress and carry myself a certain way. So, it's my experiences different. So, I grew up in England, which was a very, very, very racist place. Much as America's a very racist place, but it's a different kind of racism. But I almost feel like in America I haven't really experienced much racism because I'm viewed as something other than African American.
I believe society sees me as a man of color. I have a story for that, actually. I had this girl I was talking to a while back. She was stalking me, per se. Like, she would just like watch me on campus, or like, I don't know. She told me this afterwards. Like, she would just follow me around, and then one day she talked to me, and then she was like, "Oh, you're not what I expected." Like, she expected me to, because my taste in music, like, I really don't like hardcore rap music, which is a stereotype for black people. Or she found out that I skateboarded, which is the white boy sport again. And then she found out that what else? Like, it's not like I'm not a traditional like black guy.
I think it's 50-50 with how society sees me as a man of color. I mean, I think in some ways I get a little bit treated better since I'm not like a black person.
I had a female friend and I was trying to get to know her more, and she asked me if I was Dominican. She was Dominican as well, and her mother is, I don't know how would you really consider this, but her mother, she she had a thing that she told her children that that men with long hair. I used to have a long ponytail. That men with long hair were into bad things. So there, I kind of felt right there, like I felt hurt because I love my hair.
A lot of kids, obviously, stereotypically white kids, will come up to me and ask me if I'm Muslim. So me already knowing what the repercussions would have been, because yeah, I did convert to Islam like around that time, and still am, well, I'd say not a practicing Muslim, but observant. They would ask me like if I was Muslim, so I'm like, no, I'm not about to get beat just for saying I'm Muslim. So I just said no, I'm like from yada yada, from like wherever. So they just leave me alone, right? So that being one, living in a now predominantly white neighborhood and having people cross the street every time I walk towards them, or whatever the case may be, trying to find a job, feeling like I'm put in a box, meaning like, yeah, I'm half Mexican, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna treat me like I don't have my paperwork, like I don't know my rights, or I don't know my origins, or like I don't know how to speak up for myself. Shit like that, man. It's been rough.
I think some of the biggest misconceptions that people have nowadays when it comes to our men of color are that they're either unskilled or unmotivated, or that they're okay with having low expectations. And I don't think any of those things are okay at all.
So, well, I mean, to speak about English racism, I mean, you've probably heard that it's a lot more subtle in England. So, in terms of talking about the real sort of insidious face of racism, not name calling and all that trivial stuff. So I'm talking about an obstacle in terms of getting a job. I'm talking about the way you're perceived in school and whether you're deemed worthy of the teacher's attention or not. I'm talking about trying to get a house and decent accommodation. I'm talking about trying to progress in your career. The racism is very subtle in England. And it makes it difficult in many ways because it's hard to fight against something that is so subtle and that people don't really speak about. In America, I feel like, in general, I feel like it's much more in your face than it is in the UK. But I feel like New York is a different animal to the rest of America. And I feel like New York racism is actually kind of similar to UK racism.
As a man of color, I feel like the general population, society, plenty of people will still see me as just a nigger, a dangerous black man who, just can't be trusted pretty much. One story, I live in Crown Heights, born and raised, and that's one of the hugest areas of gentrification going on in New York City. And I was coming off of the President Street train stop, and there was a white lady, young white lady, probably 25, fresh out of college, got a nice little job in Chelsea or some shit like that. And she was walking ahead of me. She has no reason to be afraid of me, but she doesn't know that because I'm black. I'm wearing my athletic gear. I think I was dressed in all black at the time as well. And she stopped, dead in her tracks, so that I could walk ahead of her and so that she could keep track of me. And that shit was hella disrespectful. And all I could do was just laugh it off, but I have the right, because, I feel like she's just like, yo, you, I don't know, you're like a bum, you're a street urchin, you might want to take something from me, but I don't give a shit about her, you know what I mean? The only thing I care about is the fact that her and all of her cronies is plotting to take over my neighborhood, So if anything, I should be pissed off at her. So, yeah, society sees me as a part of the problem, pretty much, and this American society is designed to kill me and people like me, but I'm too smart for that.
How do I think society sees me as a man of color? Well, definitely not the smartest man in the class. I think society sees me as like a slacker. Case in point, I went to college, City College. I did an engineering degree. I remember I was taking a Cal 3 class, and I would be, the one with the hoodie, the headphones blasting, not really, socializing with a lot of people because in my field, there's not a lot of African Americans. In my field, you see Caucasians, you see Asians, but you hardly see any African Americans. Actually, no, it was me and this other kid. But he, after 2 weeks, he left the course. But so I ended up being the only African American in the class, and I remember the first exam. I went up to a Caucasian kid. I was like, good luck on your exams or whatever. And he looked at me in the face and said, "Oh, luck? I don't need luck. I don't need luck from you." And I was like, "Okay, fine." I let it be. And after the first exam, I got a 98. The professor made it known that I got a 98. I don't really like being put on the spot, but it's cool, whatever. So he was like, "Okay, Dwayne, 98. Can you stand for us, Dwayne?" It's a lecture hall, about 100 kids, and I pretty much was at the back, because, everyone thinks I'm a slacker. So I stood up at the back, and they looked at me like, wait, this kid got a 98, and then after that, the same guy that I said good luck to kept coming, like, every quiz he would compare his to mine, every exams he would compare his to mine. He would bring it back to the professor like, look, you made a mistake right here, stuff like that. And I really didn't mind. It got to the point where the professor was like, listen, I give different tests. Your test is not the same as his, so obviously it's going to look different and the answers are going to be different. And I didn't really mind. I kind of accepted it, but after a while, I just don't really, I kind of laugh it off. Like, it's just intriguing to me. Like, I don't really let it get to me that much. I just don't really, look at it.